Sometimes Hem and Haw would take their friends by to see their pile of cheese and the cheese stations and point to it with pride, saying, "Pretty nice cheese, huh?" Sometimes they shared it with their friends and sometimes they didn't. "We deserve this cheese," Hem said. "We certainly had to work long and had hard enough to find it." He picked up a nice fresh piece and ate it. Afterward, Hem fell asleep as he often did. Every night, the little people would waddle home full of cheese, and every morning they would confidently return for more. This went on for quite some time. After the while, Hem and her confidence grew into the arrogance of success. Soon they became so comfortable they didn't even notice that was happening. At this time, as time went, Snip and Scurry continued their routine. They arrived early each morning and snipped and scratched their secured around cheese stations, inspecting the area to see if there had been any changes from the day before. They would sit down and nibble on the cheese. One morning they arrived at cheese station C. They discovered there was no cheese. They weren't surprised since Snip and Scurry had noticed the supply of cheese had been getting smaller every day. They were prepared for the inevitable and knew instinctively what to do. They looked at each other and removed their running shoes they had tied together and hung conveniently around their necks, put them on their feet, and legged them up. The mice did not overanalyze things. To the mice, the problem and the answer were both simple. The situation at cheese station C had changed. So, Snip and Scurry decided to change. They both looked out into the maze. The Snip lifted his nose and sniffed uh, and nodded to the Scurry, who took off running through the maze, while Snape followed as fast as he could. They were quickly off in the search of new cheese. Later that same day, Hem and Haw arrived at the station C. They had not been paying attention to the small changes that had been taking place each day, so they took it for granted their cheese would be there. They were unprepared for what they found. "What? No cheese?" Hem yelled. He continued yelling, "No cheese, no cheese," as though if he shouted loud enough, someone would put it back. "Who moved my cheese?" He roared. Finally, he put his hands on his hips and his face turned red and he screamed at the top of his voice, "It's not fair." Ha just shook his head in disbelief. He too had counted on finding cheese at cheese station C. He stood there for a long time, frozen with shock. He was just not ready for this. Hem was yelling something, but Ha did not want to hear. He did not want to deal with what was facing him, so he just turned everything out. The little people behavior was not very attractive or productive, but it was understandable. Finding cheese wasn't easy, and it meant a great deal for more to the little people than just having enough of it to eat every day. Finding cheese was the little people's way of getting what they thought they need to be happy. They had their own idea of what cheese meant to them, and depending on their taste. For some, finding cheese was having material things. For others, it was enjoying good health or developing a spiritual sense of well-being. For her, cheese just meant feeling safe and having a loving family someday and living in a cozy cottage on the cheddar line. To him, cheese was becoming a big cheese in the church of others and owning a big house atop of Camberwort Hill. Because cheese was important to them, the two little people spent a long time trying to decide what to do. All they could think of was to keep looking around the cheeseless station to see if the cheese was really gone. While Snip and Scurry had quickly moved on, Hem and Haw continued to hem and haw. They ranted and raved at the injustice of it all. Started to get depressed. What would happen if the cheese wasn't there tomorrow? He had made future plans based on the cheese. The little people could not believe it, and how could this have happened? No one had warned them. It wasn't right. It was not the way things were supposed to be. Him and her went home and the night hungry and discouraged. But before they left, her wrote on the wall. The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it.